Hello, and welcome to our unit lesson plan, The Enlightenment and the Rise of Revolutions. This study is designed as a usable guide for incoming 10th grade students, parents, and educators to gain a greater understanding of how to develop critical thinking skills through an analysis of the Enlightenment and the Rise of Revolutions. Well, what is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and/or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observations, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. We have created a concise and accessible lesson plan built from applicable cognitive theories. Lessons in this unit will focus on the Enlightenment, the American Revolution, cause of the French Revolution, major events in the French Revolution, Robespierre and the Great Terror, Napoleon's rise to power, and current revolutions. These lessons can be extracted and used independently. Or, when tied in conjunction with one another, they form an engaging, thorough, and complete unit focused on enhancing critical thinking skills, as well as giving students the opportunity to appreciate the world's history. All of our lesson plans center around particular theorists and theories throughout the week. Let's examine some of those now. In week 1, we focus on psychology and cognition. Cognitive learning theories hold a unique place in history. They explore the captivating depths of the mind from the perspective of process. According to these theories, one's ability to learn stems from the way one perceives, organizes, stores, and retrieves information. Cognitive approaches can be applied to any discipline. The first theory that we tackle this week is Hermann Ebbinghaus's theory on memory. He argues that students can prevent the decay of information from short-term memory by working memory to rehearse it. Knowing this is extremely important for us as educators because it informs us that we are to provide students with opportunities to use rehearsal and overlearning to transfer the content of a lesson from their short-term memory to their long-term memory. Another theory that we apply this week is Pagan's theory of cognitive development as it relates to symbols, being related to abstract concepts. We do this by asking students to create a campaign poster on a philosopher of the Enlightenment using quotes, slogans, and most importantly, symbols. Our second week lesson plans focus around behaviorists. Some popular behaviorists are Thorndike, Skinner, Pavlov, and Watson. While all four theorists approaches the field of behaviors in forms of conditioning, Thorndike and Skinner focuses on positive conditioning, centering around Thorndike's observation that the law of effect seemed to demonstrate that behaviors that were rewarded tend to reoccur, while behaviors that were punished or not rewarded tended to weaken. As a result, he concluded that we may increase our confidence in positive rather than negative learning in teaching. Examples of this are when teachers reward their students with prizes, points, or rewards for participating and giving correct answers. Again, while all four theorists focus on behavior, I think it's important to highlight that Thorndike and Skinner focus on how one can promote and reinforce positive versus negative behavior, while Pavlov and Watson focus more on the general idea of conditioning said behavior. The third week, we look at constructivism, and we build lesson plans around those theories. These theories focus primarily on Jean Bacon, who argues that it is fitting to emphasize the process of accommodation characteristics of this stage because it is above all the mechanisms of accommodation which will permit us to distinguish between the application of familiar means to new situations. He also observed that the key connection between sound and visual stimuli during the second stage of development, in other words, the association between a sound and a visual perception is never a purely passive association, but it is not at the outset a relationship of understanding. We incorporate these theories into our Cause of the French Revolution lesson by having the class participate in a think, pair, share activity. This activity will have them think about, their thoughts on revolting and share it with each other. A lecture that combines visual and verbal modalities to foster stronger engagement for our students, analyzing several political cartoons in order for them to create their own, and lastly, having students create a timeline that engages the sequential organization that is distinctive to the concrete observational stage. In our fourth week, we focus on Whetstone and Grumman. Whetstone's concept of the zone of proximal development refers to the range of psychological functions between, on the one hand, those functions which the child is able to master without assistance, and on the other hand, those functions which the child can manage if given assistance. It is argued that instruction may lead development if and only if instruction assists the child in promoting the differentiation of the learning neoformation. Here, Whetstone is proposing that what the child can do today with assistance, for example, by asking leading questions or offering suggestions, or in play, which allows the child to strive to do what they actually cannot yet do, they will be able to tomorrow do without assistance. In this week's lesson plan, we connect these theories of Whetstone and Grumman through our lesson on the major events of the French Revolution. We have students participate in an activity that asks them to write down a question relating to their last lesson on the cause of the French Revolution. This is important because it draws a connection to Grumman's belief that learning should first and foremost serve us in the future. Now, Whetstone's zone of proximal development will be incorporated into our guided practice where students will watch a presentation and take cornell notes. By scaffolding throughout the lesson, students will learn much more information much more quickly. In the fifth week, we focus on learning theory and social cognitive theories. These theories focus around student efficiency. One theorist says, for students, this self-efficiency coupled with a willingness to persist in the face of struggle are crucial for academic success. Students who have limited self-efficiency are less likely to continue to try because they don't believe they can succeed. Where students who have strong self-beliefs are more likely to continue to apply themselves. Continuing research in self-efficiency by Bandra and others demonstrate that regardless of previous achievement or ability, students with higher self-efficiency work harder, continue to try for longer, persevere when faced with struggle, and are more optimistic and less anxious, and therefore achieve higher results. These theories will be applied to our lesson on Robespierre and the Rise of Terror through several learning activities and strategies. Students will participate in a Think, Pair, Share activity where they will dispense verbal praise to their peers. By doing this, it bolsters their self-efficiency, leading to a class discussion. During guided practice, the teacher and student will analyze several primary sources from the victims from the Reign of Terror. The teacher will model how to actively read, determine central ideas, and extract key components from this text. In week 6, we focus on cognitive and metacognitive development. This week, we'll be incorporating different activities that aim to enhance student cognitive and metacognitive development and critical thinking as they seek to understand the social and political climate that contributed to Napoleon's rise to power. Kuhn says that enhancing both metacognitive awareness of what one believes and how one knows is critical to developing critical thinking in students. And in the reading Teaching Critical Thinking and Problem Solving, Snyder explains how, because students are accustomed to being passive learners because they are mostly asked to memorize and recall information, it is sometimes difficult for them to engage in active learning exercises that require critical thinking skills. In order to address this issue, Snyder says that instructors should be aware of the students' initial resistance and guide them through the process to create a learning environment where students feel comfortable thinking through the answer rather than simply having an answer. In this lesson plan, we incorporate these theories by having students learn about Napoleon and his rise to power through participating in warm-up questions, taking Cornell notes, focusing on key terms presented through a Google Site presentation, analyzing several teacher-provided events from Napoleon's life by applying cognitive, metacognitive, and critical thinking strategies to produce a decision on these events supported by rationale. And finally, answer guided questions to the events accounts according to Napoleon and his rise to power. And finally, in the final week of this lesson plan unit, we focus on intelligence and creativity. To incorporate intelligence and creativity principles in this lesson, the class will participate in Think, Pair, Share, whole class warm-up discussion. Gardner proposed 8 different intelligences based on skills and abilities that are valued in different cultures. A Think, Pair, Share will utilize interpersonal intelligence. Interpersonal intelligence is the capacity to detect and respond appropriately to the moods, motivations, and desires of others. As an educator, it is useful for us to think about the different ways that information can be presented. I'd also like to invite you to take a look and go through a more detailed account of our lessons. Here you will find the lessons for each of the 7 weeks, along with the summary, the objective of the lesson, and the theories that guided our lesson plan. We also provide you with a list of materials and the activities that should be participated in by the students, along with a brief description of how one can assess the learning. That has been our unit lesson plan on the Enlightenment and the Rise of Revolutions. Thank you. Have a great day.